What did you think about this episode? How did it compare to the comics?
I feel like it's like maybe like a little lackluster compared to what I'm remembering from season one.
Hold up, Andrew.
All we're getting is 4 episodes before a mid-season break. So like, you better pack those 4 episodes if you're gonna make me wait a month before you put out more episodes.
And a lot of those good parts were involving Alan the Alien. Welcome to Backseat Directing,
where we talk about movies, TV shows, comics, and more.
We're your hosts,
Andrew
and Aaron.
We put out new episodes every Monday and Thursday.
And on this episode, we're going over episode 3 of Invincible.
Season 2. 3, 2, 1, action.
Before we go into our weekly Invincible talk, I want to take a moment to ask our viewers to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new episodes or projects that are coming out. Thank you so much for the support. Andrew, Invincible episode 3 came out this past week. This has been one of our most anticipated shows over the last 2 years or so since season 1 first came out. What did you think about this episode? How did it compare to the comics? How did it compare to your expectations of the show itself?
I thought, as always, they did a really good job of drawing, like, from the page to the screen. Like, we'll talk about it more, but, like, the cutaway from Mark and Amber to Alan the Alien and inserting their narration the same way that the narration block of writing was inserted on the screen. They had a voiceover come in, giving the same lines from the comics. Like, all of that all felt really cool. Seeing the Alan the Alien part pop in was, like, really exciting. So it's like, oh, I remember this. This is a really hype part of the comics. This really, like, blew my hair back when I saw it. But that said, like, I feel like it's like maybe like a little lackluster compared to what I'm remembering from season 1.
Hold up, Andrew. Careful. What are you doing?
You know what? It might be. So we just filmed an episode talking about Blue-Eyed Samurai.
We did, which is coming out after this episode. So keep an eye out for that.
What I'm noticing is that, and also watch it if you have different color eyes. But what I'm noticing is maybe it's because I just watched all of Blue-Eyed Samurai and really fell in love with it. But I'm having a hard time remembering details from episode 3 of Invincible, which I watched before I started Blue-Eyed Samurai. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's because like my brain got taken over with a new show that I was trying to absorb details from. I knew we were gonna cover it, so I'm trying to remember stuff. I'm trying to look in detail, but I don't feel like it's a good sign that I'm struggling to pull details from this episode. I feel like it should have been more memorable than that.
Yeah, when we talked about episode 1, we were hyped, right? Episode 1 was baller.
Kick things off.
Episode 2 was, last week we were talking about it and we didn't want to say it was a filler episode, but it was more of like a setup episode to a lot of other storylines that happened in the comics, or maybe they were almost even checking a box to like, oh, they touched on the comics. This is for those fans.
Yeah, because they said,
now we're moving on.
It was a lot. Shapesmith and Sequids, the Atlanteans, and the Darkwing. So that's a lot in one episode of like different side missions.
And more development with Adam and Eve as well.
Yeah.
But then this episode also felt like another setup episode. And now that there's another one of those, it kind of felt like a filler episode.
And what's pissing me off is right before this, like, the mid-season break this is what, like, all we're getting is 4 episodes before a mid-season break. So like, you better pack those 4 episodes if you're gonna make me wait a month before you put out more episodes.
Hopefully it's a month. We don't even know how long the break is, do we?
Let's look into it. I think it's January that the episodes are coming out.
But yeah, I honestly feel the same as you. I look back and remember season 1, enjoying all of it, but I watched it after it already came out, and I got to watch it pretty much all in one sitting. I watched it in the evening of one night, and then the next morning I watched the rest. Literally 4 and 4. And now this year, this season, we're being forced to watch it one episode at a time, and I feel like it just doesn't have as big of an impact as what season 1 did. When we were talking off camera, we were talking about how season 1 had the mystery or the suspense from Omni-Man, like we know he's a bad guy, but everyone else doesn't know that yet. People are chasing down this killer of the Guardians of the Globe. Who is it? There was that tension across the whole season. And right now, we don't really have anything that's spanning episode to episode in season 2. And we know that they're setting up things and we know what they're setting up, but they're taking their time much more than we thought they were going to with this season. Our predictions for the season seem to be very wrong. We were totally wrong.
We tried.
And we were arguing with people in the comments too, saying, you're wrong, we're right. And now I think you're right.
They were right.
Yeah,
fair
right.
enough. You know, you gotta be able to admit when you're wrong. But so I looked it up, and frustratingly, it does, as of 4 days ago when this article was written, it says that the 4 episodes that are remaining to come out are to be disclosed in 2024, which I thought was going to be in January. So I'm frustrated about that.
I told you they didn't have a date. I didn't remember the date because they didn't say one.
Oh my God, dude. It's so
How frustrating is that?
Yeah, I think that there is an overarching episode like thing going on that builds suspense. You could argue that it's Angstrom Levy going behind the scenes, traveling different universes. What we know he's doing is what we know he's working towards. But that is so in the background compared to what Nolan was. That's like maybe barely in an after cut scene in the season 2. Season 1, Nolan was always present on.
Yeah, we barely even saw. Did we even see Angstrom Levy in this episode?
I don't think so. Was there an after credit scene? I'm trying to remember.
I'm not sure.
I think they ended hard on the.
Yeah.
So spoiler for this episode, by the way. Spoilers for Invincible season 3 or season 2 episode 3. Moving forward, we're going to spoil the entire episode. But they ended hard on
Omni-Man being back.
Omni-Man being back.
Yeah, and I don't think Angstrom Levy was involved at all in this episode, and I feel like that's a misstep.
We're getting to see them like slowly, and he's like the main villain of the season. So you're right; he should be heavily on screen in order to build a relationship with the audience, in order for us to understand his motivation.
And they set him up so good in episode 1, right? Like episode 1's, it's only like a little less than an hour, and we got this whole arc of like, oh, this guy's a good person. He's trying to cure cancer and bring solutions to all these different dimensions through his power. And then something goes terribly wrong, and now he seeks revenge because he's all disformed. His plan didn't work, and Invincible, one, isn't a good guy in a lot of other dimensions, but then also is partially the reason why his experiment didn't work.
I'd go so far as to say more than partially.
I mean, yeah.
But it's just interesting because, like you said, he's going from curing cancer and feeding the hungry to trying to kill our like hero of our story, who we have a lot of affection towards. So we need to see some of his journey in between there. That's a pretty drastic shift.
I think in the comics it did kind of go similarly, where it's like we saw him for a little bit and then he disappeared and then he came back and it was like, whoa.
But they've made changes that improved upon the comics in the past. This is one I would expect them to make here too.
Yeah. We didn't really see a lot of Invincible in this episode either, which is fine. I enjoy the other characters. And there was some good parts about this episode, and a lot of those good parts were involving Alan the alien. You want to talk about kind of how they switched over to his perspective of the story?
Yeah, they even like did a title card for Alan the alien.
Yeah.
In the same fashion that they normally do the Invincible title card, which is really cool. And then we got the narrator. We got introduced to the coalition of planets. We got introduced to... I'm trying to remember the name of the planet, the Mescria or something like that. But
I don't know.
We got introduced to this planet where the coalition of planets resides, and introduced to a very important character, the leader of the coalition, which is Thetis. And Thetis, by the way, is voiced by Optimus Prime. If you're wondering why this voice sounds so familiar, that like bellowing robotic voice is indeed Optimus Prime of the Transformers. And just a really cool shift, because we got to see everything so far has taken place on Earth other than the one episode that was on Mars. So we got to see the real far wide reaches of space and how much the Viltrumites have affected the rest of the galaxy in this episode.
Yeah, Invincible's not just an Earth story in the comics. It's definitely a universal thing.
Universal and even alternate dimensions that we're beginning to see in the story. But the coalition kind of ties together the concept that Viltrumites are seen as a threat and a danger by the entire galaxy, because the coalition of planets is made up of, as the name implies, species and different varieties of beings from all over the universe, and all of them recognize the Viltrumites like conquesting and bloodlusting nature to be a threat to everyone. To
And
all
Alan is presenting that, hey, we found a weakness. We found Invincible, who could be like a kink in the armor. He's half Viltrumite, half human.
chink in the armor.
Yeah, thank you. And he's like, he could be a tool that they could use to help fight back against the Viltrumites. But then also, Alan's telling them how Omni-Man left Earth, and
Viltrumite abandoning their post
that
is
never
unheard of.
happened.
Yeah.
So that's also like a little weakness that they could possibly exploit.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Viltrumites is interesting how much of a threat they're seen as, because like all these different people are afraid of them. Like even the fact that all of them combined together still are scared of the Viltrumite threat of one race of people, like is a testament to how strong these people really are and how violent that their history is. But the crazy shocking part of this episode that I love so much is that like basically in the middle of a conversation that Alan's having with his partner, the Viltrumites just show up like out of nowhere and start just pummeling him. And it's 3-on-1, but I don't really think he would have a chance if it was 1-on-1.
No, and they even said that in kind of the recap of Alan, you know, like he struggled to even fight against one Viltrumite, you know, and then over time he saw himself as a worthy opponent to like others, to where he can go out and basically fight people from other worlds to see if they're strong enough to help him fight the Viltrumites. But he still wasn't confident that he can take down a Viltrumite on his own. And 3 of them attacked him all at once, and it was this brutal display of strength.
In the comics, when they punched his eye out of his head, dude, my jaw dropped.
Yes,
To the floor.
full page panel, like they made a big deal about it. And then at this episode, which I was kind of hoping they would let it be revealed in a later episode that he was alive, but they showed us in this episode that he is alive. He's recovering.
It looked like Thetis was trying to kill him.
Thetis?
Yeah, that's what they made it look like.
How?
They talked about there being a mole, and then they showed him like leaning over, saying like, "I'm sorry, old friend," or something like that. And,
yes.
so
Yeah.
if you want to get into spoilers now, we can.
No. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that they would leave it more of a mystery for longer. But
No, I agree. I think that they could really stand to do a little bit more changing from the comics, honestly. I mean, it's really accurate right now.
yeah, so how while this is all going on, Mark Grayson, Invincible, he's down on Earth at college.
What a wild structure to this episode, too.
Yeah.
So, like, it's the way it is in the comics, like we said, but it's like for TV, I don't know how well it really works, because it's like we get like not enough time with either story, I think, to really settle into either of them.
Well, I feel like it works. It's just our expectations are so high, and we're only able to watch a portion of it at a time. Like, I really do think if it was like a full season at once, the watchability would be better.
We're going to rewatch it when the whole thing's out anyway.
Yeah, totally.
During, approximately around some time of to be disclosed, we'll be rewatching it.
Yeah, we don't know, because we don't know if it'll ever come out. But I think it does work, because other shows and stuff have done it, where you get a lot. Episode 1 followed a lot of different story parts, and putting it all into one episode. It's not what we want. We wanted more, and we know what happens. So I think that's going into it as well. But yeah, Mark's at college now. We also saw a bit of Debbie kind of going through her recovery process from everything that's happened in season 1. But then someone shows up at the college and surprises Mark. You want to talk about
Seance
that?
Dog. Yeah, Seance Dog from Mark Grayson's favorite comic book series shows up. Mark is like, what is going on? That's not real. He like grabs him in the hallway, pulls him into his room, and then pulls him out the window and starts fighting him. The individual reveals themselves to be a disguised Thraxan from the planet Thraxa. And he says, if you can put these pieces together from the show, which is really interesting, they don't like they don't overtly say like the length of the lifespan, but when he first appears, he says, I traveled most of my life here to meet you. And then they say like, how long is the journey back? And he says like 6 months or 10 months or something like that. So insinuating that 6 months is like most of his life. And then just after that, they say like, my people have a very short lifespan or something like that compared to human.
The travel to there was 6 Earth days.
Oh, 6 days. That's even shorter.
Yeah.
So I like how he says that I like how he says 6 of your Earth days because it's really cool because it highlights the different. Every planet has a different measurement of time. Their planet circles around the sun at a different rate than ours. Their planet revolves around its axis at a different rate than ours. So
Yeah, science.
I think that it's really cool that they highlighted that by saying Earth days because I always feel like it's strange when in movies when other species from another planet, one, speak English and two, measure times in the Earth year. I'm like, why would you even know?
Well,
about
last Wednesday,
what do you mean? What are you using, the Roman calendar? But
long live the empire.
spread. Think about Rome every day, but they space people do too. So the Thraxan takes him to the planet where we get the big unveil of the episode. So hopefully you've watched it thus far. But the fact that the new leader of the Thraxans is Nolan Grayson, our Omni-Man. Finally, J.K. Simmons is back in the show.
I know.
It feels like what it's been missing, honestly.
Yeah, he was definitely a highlight of season 1, and he wasn't in episode 2 at all.
He was sorely missed.
And I don't think you can count this as really even being in episode 3. He had a 3-sentence line or a 3-word line or 2-word line, and that's it. But gosh, this is setting up something cool, right? I feel like we just keep saying that. Like, it's setting something up that's really exciting.
I want to go into our spoiler segment. Do you have anything else non-spoiler you want to talk about? We can talk about Debbie and her she goes to the meeting. She meets another person who is the spouse, or what do you call a male widow? Would he still just be a widow?
I think so, yeah.
he's the well, they say like a black widow, I think. But so he's a widow. Yeah, they say like a black widow, and that refers to like a woman who kills husbands, right? So I thought it was a female exclusive term.
I don't remember them saying Black Widow at all.
They don't say it in the show. That's like the royal, like that's a term.
Okay.
You never heard the term Black Widow?
No, I've heard of like a widow and stuff, and like how it's referencing the spider.
A Black Widow is like a woman who like kills multiple husbands or has multiple husbands that die and like is inheriting wealth. Like,
so then what is this?
I guess he'd still be a widow.
I don't know. He's the male equivalent of a widow.
We're gonna call him a widow. So she meets a Green Ghost Widow. When she finds out he's Green Ghost Widow, it's like debilitating to her because her husband, Omni-Man, killed Green Ghost, and so now she feels this overwhelming guilt, which compels her to share that with him. And crazy, like the one person she feels like she can share this with, the burden of this, her son's not even around. She has nobody to share this difficulty with other than Olga in these short conversations. She shares it with the widow of Green Ghost, and he turns on her like instantly, which I feel like anybody could have seen coming in this show, that he was going to react very poorly to it, except for Debbie. Like, I was like, no, don't tell him. He's going to hate you. Like, this guy is devastated by the loss of his love, Green Ghost. Clearly, you know that. So I guess she just shares out of a feeling of guilt. And like, this is leading to Debbie just spiraling even further down. She's like circling the drain right now, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, folks.
Much worse.
But
all right, spoiler territory.
So the spoiler territory.
So this is, if you haven't read the comics,
then skip.
Then maybe turn this episode off, hit that like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our other episodes. Maybe leave a comment about what your favorite part of this episode was, or maybe what you wish you saw. But if you haven't read the comics, we're going to spoil the show for you here. So
the spoiler for the show is that we are going to get the appearance of a new character, I believe, in the next episode, right?
Hopefully.
The Thraxans have a compatibility with Viltrumite DNA. They can have children, and Nolan has sired a second son, Kid Omni-Man.
Which means we'll also see the 2 other Viltrumites.
Yes.
Come back, and
Craig is one of them, General.
Yep. And then the girl.
Yeah,
what's her name?
I do not know.
She's an important one.
With the hair.
Theresa? No, it's...
Oh, no, Anessa? She's
I think
she's
so.
not until later. Her first appearance is on Earth right before Conquest shows up. She comes to sleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She's not one of the ones that.
No, I think they kill these ones besides Craig.
Okay.
There's 3 of them. I don't think she's one of them. I think if
Okay.
I'm remembering correctly, they're all men. But we.
So either way, they come back. Where do you think it is? Ooh, we'll look later.
They show up hunting down. They obviously
Omni-Man.
they hunted down. Maybe it's different in this. Is they showed her. They showed the female with the knife in her hair, talking when they were interrogating Alan. So they just hunted down Alan, but now some Viltrumites are going to find Nolan where he's been hiding out on Thraxa. They're going to come after him for abandoning his post, and Mark's going to be there to help his dad fight off these threats, which they're Viltrumites that are hundreds of years probably older than Mark, so considerably stronger.
Yeah.
And we get to see his like face off with them, which will
And
be
Mark's
really
also still just feeling all emotional because
he's just met his dad.
Yeah.
And I think after that fight is where he learns about Kid Omni-Man or Omni Boy.
Yeah.
He goes by Kid Omni-Man, but that's Omni-Man's son. He's half Thraxan, so he's going to age quickly to like adolescence, and then it's going to halt when the Viltrumite DNA starts to kick in, and he's going to start aging much more slowly. So we get to see him age quicker than Invincible, obviously, to try to like catch him up to Invincible.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So we're definitely like retracting our earlier guesses for how the season's gonna progress
not
and
gonna
where
go
it's
that
gonna
fast.
go. It's not going anywhere close where we thought, which was Invincible Wars. You were even saying we would see like Invincible Wars starting like now.
I thought, here's the thing though. At the end of the season, if they decide to skip the first arc for Angstrom Levy and skip to Invincible Wars because it's more of a bigger, entertaining moment, they could do that.
No, but I feel like it makes sense to go like with Debbie.
They've been being so accurate to the comics, I think that they won't.
Yeah, Debbie, Armstrong Levy, that creates the tension between all of them. And
Well,
then,
do you think Mark? You're right. The Debbie thing Debbie's been very much a focus of the season, so that makes sense. But do you think?
so rather than attaching us to Armstrong Levy and making us hate him or fear him or whatever, they're more so making us love Debbie and feel for her. And then he's going to kidnap her.
My question for you right now is: do you think Mark is being a bad son?
How so?
Well, he leaves the planet, comes to say goodbye to Amber, and says, "Can you tell my mom I'm leaving?" And he's just left for college, and he knows his mom is emotional. He found her breaking down on the kitchen floor at the end of the last episode. He's not texting her back, not checking in with her, and just leaving the planet without going to see her.
That's a really hard question.
He knows she's in a really hard place in her life.
But he's also in a really hard place in his life as well. So it's hard. I can definitely see it going either way. Like, is Debbie being a bad mom for not caring for her son more and being there for her son more? Like, she's completely wrecked, right? She is not there to support Mark at all. And Mark is 18 years old.
Maybe it says more about my psychology that I only saw Mark being a bad son.
Yeah.
Maybe that's more has to do with me than has to do with the show.
Maybe it has more to do with me too. Thinking more of like, well, where's Debbie?
Yeah.
Why isn't she being a parent here? You know, like even though like they're both going through trouble, like at that age, I feel like the kid still should be able to lean on the parent.
Yeah,
And
you're right. I mean, I feel a lot of obligation to my mom because I grew up with a single parent household.
Yeah.
And my mom took care of us. So I feel like I owed it a lot to like try and help my mom like back for all she did. So I feel like I'm like getting in my therapy session right now.
yeah. But I can totally see it either way. I feel like they're both just not in the emotional state to be able to focus on anyone else besides their own grief and their own healing process, whether that's for the good or the bad. It's just what they can handle at the time. Like, he probably doesn't want to go say goodbye to his mom because every time he's with his mom right now, she's broken. It's not his mom anymore. You know, like she's
The shell of his mom.
right. And he's also still kind of a shell of himself. You know, he's trying to find where he belongs, how his powers are supposed to help, or are they going to take over himself to where he is a bad guy?
We also get to see another instance of him like disobeying Cecil as well. Cecil tells him to stay on Earth, that they might need him, and he tells them, no, the Guardians can handle it. This is billions of lives I could save.
He also says, doesn't he say something like, I'm not going to do everything you say?
And he's like, your dad said the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Cecil's trying to play on his guilt with his dad, but sees it through a different angle. I mean, Mark's guilt from his dad is what's making him do this.
Mark sees it through his mom's eyes.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what she was saying in season 1. Like,
never a wrong thing to try to help someone.
Yeah.
And like he said, like, I think in his eyes, everything he does goes to part of redeeming him, redeeming the legacy his dad's left behind for him. Like, if he can go save 1 billion people on this other planet, he's a little bit closer to redeeming everything his dad's done.
Yeah. I think what we're missing right now in these episodes is like a closure. Like, what have they solved? What have they accomplished in the last 2 episodes? You know, like in episode 2, we didn't really there wasn't like an ending arc to that episode, you know, is kind of its own little thing, but it also didn't seem like it had like a beginning, middle, end, you know, and that was kind of the same with this third one. What are your predictions for the 4th? Do you think you're going to have that same feeling of like, I don't know if this is hitting as hard as it used to, or are you going to be like, oh no, everything they did was for a reason. I feel great. This is back to being the best show ever. Like,
here's my thing about Invincible. When it comes to season openings and season finales, which this is a mid-season finale, so make no mistake, it is kind of a finale. So when it comes to the openings and closings, they are very strong.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get...
I've rewatched season 1 a bunch of times, and most of the times I'm rewatching, I skip to episode 1, and then I skip all the way to 8.
Is that rewatching?
Well, it's rewatching episodes.
Yeah. But like, I think we can firmly count on them to give us an epic, badass mid-season finale. We're gonna have a super emotional conversation with Mark reuniting with his dad. We're gonna have like this insane fight. Dude, bless you. Every time we see Omni-Man fight, it's epic. So we're like every time, whether it's the kaiju, immortal, whatever, it's epic. So Omni-Man fighting other Viltrumites that are more his level of strength as opposed to Mark, and multiple of them. I hope they don't stick with Mark too much, because in the comics we stick with Mark a lot, and he's like really struggling to keep up, and Omni-Man's kind of off to the side, like fighting 2 of them.
Yeah, we can see both at once in this kind of format.
Exactly. I hope they choose to really focus on both of them, or even stick them closer together.
Yeah, I want to see Invincible get a few wins, but then also like just get beat up.
I want to
see like how Omni-Man compares to someone on his equal strength level.
We need to show Omni-Man the difference between Omni-Man and the average Viltrumite, because he is an upper echelon Viltrumite.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be an epic episode. My expectations for it are high, especially kind of last 2 episodes not being entirely what I imagined they could be. I think now is the time to shine, and now is when they're going to come out swinging, like with a big long format fight for most of the episode, hopefully, and then the reveal of like a Kid Omni-Man be like a really cool reveal.
Yeah, they're probably going to go through the whole Viltrumite story again, like they do in the comics every time a new Viltrumite gets introduced. So we might get that for a few minutes.
It'd be unnecessary, but...
Well, we might get for his son, you know? But yeah, I have high hopes for the episode too. The main thing that's really like pushing me away is this mid-season break.
It's frustrating. I won't lie.
It is, because I mean, we
waited so long for season 2.
Yeah.
We waited so long.
And I understand like it's like the holidays and you're like afraid that people are going to drop off, but like if you would tell me like, oh, we're going to kick back off that second week of January, I'd be like, okay, I know when it's coming back. But since it's to be determined, it's like, is it? Dude, what do you mean? You're just like dragging me along.
They put movies out on Christmas Day. Just put the stuff out. We'll watch it. We're all sitting around on Christmas after we open our gifts. Like, the holidays are a busy time, but like there's no need for this, in my opinion. Or don't start it in November if that's what you're really worried about. You didn't have to do it. Yeah, there's 2 years for this to come out. And you're
what's another 2 months to just start it in January?
Why are we waiting 2 years and getting half of the season? You know what I mean? Like, that's such a disappointment after the long wait time.
Yeah. I think they are trying to do a season every 12 to 15 months now. So hopefully we won't have to wait as long. Of course, we've heard all the news that they've already started season 3 and all that stuff, but We just don't have any dates.
Well, and with that lack of information, we come to thanking everybody for listening to this episode. We appreciate if you made it this far, especially like to this comic section. If you read the comics, you were awesome. Thank you so much. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and share with a friend. It helps the show out a ton if you do any of those things, including rating the show is a big help as well.
Yes, thanks so much for watching, for all the support, and that's a wrap.